Without the gospel, darkness is our reality. We need to be able to hear the gospel to respond to it. But in closed countries, there are systems in place and there are leaders who don't want that message to make it to people who need to hear it. And so it takes people going who are willing to share that good news. It's only then that the light of the gospel can be seen by the people who need to see it so that their hearts can respond. I went to East Asia 15 years ago. I had become a Christian as a college student, and I had a vision and a burden to share Christ with other college students. I had more zeal than knowledge at that point, and God had a lot to teach me. I remember my first year sharing the gospel again and again and seeming to know fruit. There were so many atheists who told me they wanted nothing to do with me. And then when a student heard the gospel and believed it, I just had to step back in awe and say, God, only you could do that. I don't even know how that happened, but your Spirit changed that person's life. We continued to do evangelism and disciple those who came to faith. And as we began to help them grow in their faith, one of the first issues was, where are they going to go to church? Many of the local house churches that we knew were already filled to capacity. They couldn't grow because they had already filled somebody's living room. And so as we began to see 10, 15, 20 college students come off of the campuses we were working on each year as they graduated, there was nowhere for them to go. There were no seminaries around us to train them as pastors. And so we tried to give them the help we could to start some house churches in our city. One of the big challenges, of course, is the security of it. You're asking young believers to do something difficult in starting a church, but you also have to help them face the reality that as church leaders, they're the target of persecution that will come from the government. Police know that they can't deal with 60 to 80 million Christians, as most people estimate it in the country, but they can go after the leaders of the churches, and that's what they usually do. I've never had the knock on the door come from me. That's why I'm able to still be in the country. But my best friend had the knock at the door come. He was leading a small group Bible study with students. The police had been investigating him for some time. He didn't know that. But when the knock at the door came, it was 9 police officers that came in the door and took he and the students away in the paddy wagon, basically. And the students were interrogated. They were threatened. He himself was given just a few days to pack his things with his family and to leave the country.
East Asia is not a totally open country as in America. We are not serving in a government-recognized churches. So if we do things too big or too aggressive, we might receive government threats. Then we might be invited to have a talk with them, and they said, no, if you keep pushing this on, you're going to put yourself in a very dangerous place.
There are more and more people coming to Christ, and more and more highly educated. Those level, this community of people, you cannot really stop them from meeting together. We used to call ourselves underground churches, but I don't think it's a proper name because Bible never teaches us to hide. That's why the churches are coming up and, more churches because more Christians. It's much easier than 7 or 10 years ago.
I think the church in East Asia, has gone through a very severe persecution before. So the church and the Christians have been used to the situation of marginalization. So they were pretty content with being a marginalized group. So they don't need to face the society and answer people's questions. But now the church from the East Asia is going from a stage of underground and marginalized to a new stage of more space to do ministry and to have more and more interaction with the kind of like social thoughts and social issues. So many church leaders are confused and they just don't know what to do because they're moving from this stage to another.
Back in East Asia, we were like, for the young churches, we only have 10, 20 years. And we always say that the churches are built upon grace, but not very much a structure, not very much really healthy. So we are trying to really help them to see the power of gospel, to become unashamed of the gospel, and really help them to be filled with God's grace.
The heart of a missionary is really that the spark of the gospel would ignite a flame in a place where it's needed, and that the fire there would continue to burn. I think as we're faithful to do evangelism and trust that God is going to work through it, my wife and I never know how far that's going to go. I think of some of the first students that I shared Christ with 15 years ago in East Asia, never really expecting, struggling to believe that any of them would come to faith. And as some of them did, just to be able to watch the last 15 years, all the people that they have influenced, the churches that they have started, and now even the missionaries that are going to other parts of the world, it reminds me that the spark of the gospel is going to go places we don't expect. And we should trust that God delights to surprise us and to do more through us than we thought he could.